Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this iBEstuur webinar on shared service platforms. We have two speakers for you today, which will introduce themselves in a little while. But first, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Peter Brijs. I'm Program Manager for DICTU Rijk, which is a shared service platform for public service delivery. And I'm responsible for software implementation in the western part of the Netherlands. In this webinar, which will last about 45 to 50 minutes, we have two speakers which will both give you a 10-minute pitch, and we have some questions per speaker. Please ask your questions in the chat while they speak. We will save the chat, so even the questions that we cannot discuss right now, we can always come back to them later. And also during the presentation, we will have 3 polls. And well, the polls can be a nice input for the discussion as well. First, before we start, I will give you the first poll, which is: shared services are indispensable to guarantee the quality of government implementation. Please give us your votes, and then we can ask Graham and Eric to introduce themselves. Eric, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah. Good morning to you all. I'm Erik Bosveld. I'm Program Manager at DICTU Rijk. Been working at DICTU for the last 11 years. Responsible for the finance of Rijk for the long-time development and onboarding of new customers is also part of my job. So that's it.
Well, we do have the results of the poll, and I think both of our speakers will be happy to hear that 81% of our viewers agree that shared services are indispensable to guarantee the quality of government implementation. So I think that's good. Well, I think we can start with the first pitch. Eric.
Yep.
Can I give you the podium?
I'll start off right away. Just one moment. Before I start off with Rijk, I'll tell you a little bit about DICTU. DICTU is the IT department of the Ministry of Economic Affairs and the Ministry of Agriculture in the Netherlands. We have about 1,450 employees, yearly turnover about 310 million euros. You see some key figures about DICTU in the middle, and to the right, some of the services we provide. And as from 2013 on, we also started delivering IT services to other departments apart from economic affairs and agriculture. So that's the moment when we started being a shared service center within the Netherlands. Then on to Rijk. Rijk roughly translates into government case. So it's a case management system, and as long as it has a case flow in it, we can implement it into Rijk. Rijk consists of the components you see on the bottom left of your screen. So we use Pegasystems as our workflow engine. Alfresco we have as a document management system, Red Nose DocGen as a document generator, and some other components as well. So what we do is we primarily focus on the business process of our customers. And why do we do that? Well, for instance, if you take an inspection process, whether you're inspecting a hospital or a road or let's say a damaged house in the province of Groningen, the process that meets that inspections are very much the same within the government. The way they used to be implemented into IT systems used to vary a lot, but as I said, some key components, you see the same patterns repeating all over when we dive into those inspection processes. And what we try to do with Rijk is that all those repeating patterns, we bring that into base functionality of Rijk so that we only have to implement the customer specific part. And that speeds up the implementation, and that also reduces the costs. So we have a pay-per-use policy. It's not actually pay-per-click, as it says right here. We have a pay-per-user policy. And we do that also to have a look together with our customer into their business process. And when we were able to optimize that business process a bit, for instance, if a customer does an inspection process with 300 employees and we'll bring that down to 250, he needs only 250 users in Rijk. And he also gets to reduce costs on people as well. Fast implementation, I already talked you through on that. Because we have more and more base functionality, we can implement pretty fast, and we don't have to program into Rijk, we only have to model. So that also speeds up the implementation. Pega is a low-code platform, for those of you who know a little bit about technique. So we only have to model the processes and we don't have to program anything. One of the key figures about the Rijk also is that lifecycle management is included. It's included in our base fee for managing the system. We bring out a new version of Rijk every 6 months, and we upgrade every customer implementation every 6 months to the latest version. And that latest version not only exists of newer versions of, for instance, Pega, Alfresco, and bug fixes and things like that, but also new base functionality. So that also means that if something has been implemented for a specific customer as customer specific, and it gets, well, more or less promoted into base functionality, that customer gets to pay less because it's no longer customer specific anymore. Reuse, I've talked you through on that already. We try to reuse as much as possible across all of the government. How do we work? We have a 4-phase model, as long as you don't count phase 0 with it. In the first phase, we focus on the business case of our customer. So what are the benefits of using Rijk for our customers? We build a business case together, and we dive into their business process to see what is needed to make a success out of implementation of Rijk for that customer. It takes about 4 weeks, and we'll go on to phase 2. Phase 2 also lasts 4 weeks. It's a very important phase because then we get to explore the partnership together with our customer. That's one of the goals, and the other goal is we build a little bit of functionality in 2 sprints, so that the customer can see how the end result will look like. As I said, also takes about 4 weeks. Then we'll go on to phase 3, and we'll build the minimal viable product for that customer. And the MVP is the minimal functionality that a customer needs to go live with. And after that, the system is live, users can use it, and you go on to phase 4. You use the system and you grow. What are our challenges for the future? First of all, focus on the business goals and the business process of our customers. For some of our customers, that's pretty new, talking with their IT department about the business processes. But our customers get more and more used to it, so I'll expect that to diminish in a couple of years. Also, the transition from waterfall to agile is, for some customers, also pretty new, together with keeping the MVP as small as possible. We do see some customers who try to implement the whole new system at once, and then you don't get to benefit from the fact that you build part of the functionality, you learn from that, and then you'll go on implementing the next bit of functionality. And last but not least, filling the library. As long as Rijk grows, we have more base functionality. So the number of functionalities that we have to build customer specific I expect will keep on going down, and we'll be able to implement faster at reduced costs. Well, let me finish off by saying that we have 2 systems put live in the last couple of months. Both have to do with earthquake damage. One of the systems is earthquake damage inside the province of Groningen because of the gas mining there. And the other one is mining damage outside the province of Groningen. Let's give you an idea about how quickly we can implement that. the last one, so mining damage outside Groningen, we started that project off and at the 20th of April this year. So that was well into Corona time. We have had a team that have never met each other and have never met the customer, started building on the 20th of April. We've put the MVP live at the 1st of July. And the last functionality, last sprint, has been added at the 24th of August. So you could say we've put the whole system live in about 4 months, and that includes the summer holiday. And the other system is gas mining damage in Groningen. That's a pretty much more complex system. Took us a little while longer to build the MVP there, but that one has been put live on the 1st of September. Well, that concludes my part of the presentation. Thank you very much. You're still on mute, Peter.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you for the reminder. Please, everyone, feel free to ask Eric any questions. I already have one. I know that Rijk also has portals for and you gave an example of people with mining damage. Do you think that Rijk has the potential to give citizens more control, to strengthen citizens' control?
Yeah, I think so, because well, it's part of the goals for the central government to interact more digitally with the citizens of the Netherlands. You can interact quicker, you can be more transparent as a government. So I'll expect that the number of functionalities and the number of services that we provide to the citizens keeps on growing and growing. And well, we have the portal already live, so adding new functionality to it, adding new services to it, that's pretty easy. We've put everything live. For instance, dealing with authentication, that's already been put in place, so we don't have to do that again. But I expect that more and more services of not only the central government, but all of the government will keep on growing and being digitally.
Okay, thank you. Well, we seem to have lost Graham, so even if you do a thuisdebat, as it's called in good English, then you can lose people in traffic. While we wait for Graham, because I'm sure he will return shortly, we can start the second poll, which is public-private partnership based on a clear division of tasks and risks is essential for real innovation within government. Well, the poll is live right now, so please cast your votes. And while we have the poll running, I have a question from Ronald for you, Eric. Mm-hmm. And it is, how do you go about the scoping of the MVP functionality and interfacing in situations where there's no greenfield, but a complex set of legacy applications?
Yeah, well, that was the case with one of our customers. We built a new implementation of a business process for one of our customers, which replaced 28 legacy business application. And together with that customer, we advised to build all the functionality into the new system. So that's more or less a one-on-one copy, and to keep reducing complexity after that. You can't implement a business process optimizing and implementing a new system all at once, because then you'll have a too complex situation. So when you do have a greenfield, the MVP approach works best. I agree with that. But also when you talk about a new system, also customers want new functionality, and that's why we said to that customer, well, let's build the existing functionality first. So that is what we saw as the MVP, and from there on, take new functionality in the next sprints. So it's more or less how you classify the MVP, how you define it.
Okay, thank you, Eric. I think that was a great answer to Ronald's question. I do have the results of the second poll and I see that 70% of the people agree that public-private partnership based on the clear division of task and risk is essential for real innovation within government. I would like to elaborate on that when we start the debate after the pitch. If you are ready, Graham, can I give you the room?
Yeah, thank you. I'm just trying to test something out. I think I might have fixed it. So give me a second.
Well, we can fill the time by asking Eric to also give us a little bit of insight how DICTU works with partners from the public sector.
Yeah, well, clearly we don't have all the knowledge about implementing IT systems within our own walls. So yeah, we do lean heavily on all the expertise that the market has. For instance, implementing Pegasystems or implementing Alfresco as our document management. We bring a lot of experience and knowledge about how that has been implemented in, for instance, the commercial business onto Rijk. So we do talk with different partners. We talked to an airline company last week that uses Pega. I know also Rabobank and Philips use Pega, and we have a meeting with them shortly. But also on behalf of the technical suppliers of technology for Rijk, there is also a lot of knowledge there. So we try to combine that as much as possible when we are looking into a specific case for a specific customer. So we try to find as much similarities from things that have already been done in the market.
Okay, so first what I'll do is I'll give a brief overview of SSCL and just give you the concept of the size that we're dealing with and the variations that we have within our department. Then I'll take you through the journey that we've embarked on. So first things first, SSCL. SSCL is a joint venture between the private sector, which is Sopra Steria, and the Cabinet Office. It's 75% Sopra Steria and 25% Cabinet Office. It was set up or formed in 2013 and went live with some of the bigger departments, the DWP, DEFRA and EA. As the journey on, we signed contracts with the Ministry of Justice the next year and the Metropolitan Police Service in 2015. The two most recent contracts that we have won, which is 2018, which is the CITB, which is our first, and at this point our only non-government contract, and this year we went live with the Ministry of Defence, and the Ministry of Defence is almost double the size of SSCL as a department. So if I just go to the next slide, yeah, everyone can see that. So as some of these big numbers say, we deal with 23 of the largest departments across 4 platforms as it stands, all Oracle based. But however, as the journey goes on, and we'll touch upon in the next slide, I fully expect that there to be more ERPs that are implemented or that we have to deal with. But when it says 23 ERPs, actually we including all the arm's length bodies, we actually deal with roughly 70 departments in all, and all have their varying ways of working and so on, which is the variations that we have to deal with. Yeah, as you can see, some of those really big numbers there, 378 billion pounds of payments made every year. And actually, that doesn't take into consideration what we are doing with the MOD at the moment, because we haven't been able to have a full year to grasp. So that number will get much bigger. Roughly over 500,000 employees on payroll. That is literally just the payroll, so it does not include contractors. So it's a really big payroll environment that we have to deal with. Over the past 3 years, or past 8 years, it's over £300 million worth of savings for the government and counting, and that's a really good news story, because that's predominantly the reason why we were set up and why we were brought onto a single operating platform. Over almost 1 million recruitment applications processed for government and police, and you wouldn't be surprised, but with the likes of COVID and the increase in jobs available because of the COVID response within government, that number has been superseded. And although I don't have the official figures, I wouldn't be surprised if that's gone to over 1 million in the meantime. And then the final two things that I do want to touch upon is around we deal with 2 million calls every year from our employee or department employees, with over 95% first-time resolution, and that's a figure that we're really proud of, because we don't have, because of the government departments that we do deal with in security, we don't have the most up-to-date systems that we can deal with. So that's changing, and that's changing, and we'll come on to that in a bit. And we've got the awards there, the 7 awards that we've been recognised for, and actually in the past 2 months we've got another 3. So that number can be updated to double figures, and we're really proud of that. And it's getting one of the reasons why we won the Ministry of Defence work, which is almost 300,000 employees themselves, is because of those awards and the innovation roadmap that we really are starting to embark on. So that's a bit about SSCL as a company, and as you can imagine, that actually puts us, despite and even within the UK, we're very, very unknown company, despite touching the lives of almost everyone in the country at one point or the other, because of the departments we work with, Department of Work and Pension as an example. And it actually puts us as one of the biggest shared service centres in Europe, if not the biggest, because of those figures. So yeah, we do have to deal with an enormous amount of variation. If I go on to the next slide, and this is the journey we have started. So the first thing I do want to say is that we actually managed to go live with our SSCL Service Plus platform on Monday. So it's been a really busy week, and Service Plus is our platform that's driven by Pega itself. Now we are on a transition journey. I touched on before about the departments and the 4 different ERPs. Traditionally, we have got one single operating platform for the government space, and that is not Ministry of Defence, not CITB, and not police. So it's all the other departments we deal with. And that makes things a lot easier to create a true shared service centre model, to get economies of scale when making innovation. However, we know that the directive from central government at the moment is that actually the departments have the ability, if they so wish, to move off the single operating platform, which is an Oracle 12 instance, and actually it's only supported to 2030 at the moment. So at some point over the next 10 years, but we do need to plan, we expect them to move off that platform. The platform itself, and all platforms, we do deliver HR, finance services, as we've touched upon. So it's a rather large platform that deals with a lot of difference. Now, what we are developing at the moment, and Pega or SSCL Service Plus is the brains of this environment, is an ability to be able to almost plug in and play any ERP, any edge technology, and anything that the customer so wishes. So let's take if they have their own salary sacrifice scheme or partner, that we've created what's called MyHub as a front end for customers to log on to. And MyHub is what we're creating is the finance and HR for the general user, the one-stop shop for every single one of our departments to interact with SSCL, whether that is raising a requisition, to employee payroll queries, to anything within our lives. And actually, we're now starting, because of this ecosystem, we're now starting to get traction in elements that wasn't necessarily within our gift. But how does that look on a practical point of view? So I'm going to take a user journey, and I'll tell you how our system or our future system fits in. So as I said, we've got SSCL Service Plus as the brains. We have an API layer that we have also created, and then we have the ERPs, which is the engine, the engine room that actually delivers the services like payroll, like the finance, the actual statement of record. And we've also started to embark on a journey of utilizing what is we're deeming as best-in-class SaaS products. So like I said, how does this look like to a journey? So I won't name anyone specific, but let's say one of our departments, which is currently on SOP and is moving off SOP, we offer a platform, or we offer a holiday leave service that isn't Oracle based, and the reasons why we're pulling it out of the ERP is well, firstly is cost. To implement the holiday platform for Oracle is millions, and that's just implementation for our departments anyway. And the other thing is actually the people side. So if we are to utilize Oracle platform, they would have to standardize to a point the terms and conditions that all their employees take or have. Now, what that means is, let's just take one of our departments in Ministry of Justice, 80,000 employees, so 15% or so size of SSCL that we deal with. We have they alone, so they alone have prison service. So we have guards that work shift work. They also deal with the courts tribunal service. So therefore they have the judges, the clerks, and already you can see the complications and essentially the inability to standardize those terms and conditions that those employees can take. So what we've done is we've implemented or utilized what we have identified as the best-in-class SaaS product for holidays, which we are embarking with a firm called eDays. And eDays are not only cost effective, but they allow us to have multiple terms and conditions across everywhere. They give that really good slick user journey, and allow us to actually be masters of our own destiny. So if suddenly we have a new terms and conditions appear, or a new holiday regime appear, then what we would do is we can have actually easily enough actually change it within our system. So that gives us the functionality side. But as from a user, as I've said before, we use MyHub. So MyHub is our version of the Oracle landing page. Now MyHub, a user would log on to MyHub, click holidays, wouldn't realize they are going into eDays, book their holidays. The holiday would then get sent to their employee and sent back to them. And actually what this also gives us, in certain departments, they have what is called hubs. And that hub is a central team that actually book holidays on behalf of others. Again, a function that we couldn't do in Oracle. So that's great from a user journey point of view. But in 3 years' time, 4 years' time, 5 years' time, whenever that is, say the MOJ decide to move off SOP. In traditional world, you would have then had to retrain all the staff. They would have had a new user interface. They would have had to learn all the screens, which let's be frank, the prison guards don't have the time to then actually go in and learn how to book holidays. So that user journey is pretty poor when changing systems. So what we are doing is we still keep that MyHub platform at the front. We have Pega as the brain to decide or where on that journey or which system it interacts with. So we know, for instance, may say MOJ are using eDays, Cabinet Office aren't, they are using a Workday solution. Pega will decide what journey that is. And then utilizing that API layer, it would then go and pick up the information from whether it's eDays, Workday, Oracle, whatever that may be, and then interact directly with the employee. So apart from the professional users, the employees won't see any difference to their day-to-day work. The only times that they will see any difference is when we decide to upgrade it, but that will be very much, it won't be fundamental changes to how they interact with the system. What we are designing, because we know how Oracle and Workday and the other systems go, and I'll start to wrap up now, but what we are designing is a system whereby traditional book holidays, to book expenses, to see your pay slips within the traditional ERPs, that would have been a 15 to 20 click journey, and you would have had to have the knowledge to actually go into that to the screens. Those screens as well would take 15, 20, 30 minutes, depending on the platform, depending on your IT that you have and actually the infrastructure itself. Whereas this MyHub API layer is actually a one-click journey. I'm into my holidays, I want to book my holiday, or I want to see what my payslip is. So that is the journey we're taking at the moment. And it's very, very customer user journey focused. And just to sort of sign off where we've decided to, why we decided to put this focus, and we all do this focus, is I think the best example we can always give in a much simplistic terms is Amazon itself. So Amazon, not everyone realizes, but 50% of sales sold through Amazon is not by Amazon itself, and it's third parties. We don't realize that because we just got one screen, and that's the ecosystem that we are building for the financial and HR areas. And I think that's where I'll sign it off. Thank you.
And thank you, Graham. Thank you. I'm glad it's worked after all. Maybe one question before we go to our third poll is you mentioned that you have 23 of the largest government departments as your SSCL customers. To what extent are the processes standardized within SSCL as a condition for efficient services? I mean, do they all have to work exactly the same?
It's a really good point, and the answer is no. Standardize the department. 6, 7, 8 years into the journey, it's not happening, and that's why the API layer and Pega or SSCL Service Bus will really come into its own, and be able to take in non-standard transactions, convert them to information or data that the back office systems can handle, and then transact them in the same journey. I think that a really good stat that we have, there's two things that are really good around that, or we can highlight that, is 30% of our transactions, bearing in mind we are a back office shared service center, but 30% of our transactions are actually in the ERP. All the remainder is around taking that non-standard functionality or non-standard transactions from our departments. And then the other thing I would like to highlight is around data entry. So we have forms for, let's say, invoice paying. We have over 500 forms for the government space alone. And that is because, say, a same-day payment, we have 18 different variations of that same-day payment form, because each department would like their own different bits of information or approval flow off the back of it.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a third poll, and I will start it now. And it is: self-services are a crucial element to reduce administrative burdens and to give employee and citizens more and better access to the personal data? I think both Graham and Eric touched on that, but I'm curious to see what the audience responds to this. And while we have the poll running, there is another question coming in by Ronald. It's for Graham. He's thanking you for an impressive SSC journey. And he asked if there's any antitrust backlash by incumbent SSCs or any other commercial service providers.
I think because of what I didn't touch upon about the start is that the journey that we started on, it very much started as a partnership as opposed to the traditional shared service center customer relationship. And one of the main reasons that, or one of the big reasons why it was, it went through almost effortlessly. I'm not going to say there wasn't any problems, especially when we implemented one operating platform for all those departments, but was because 90% of the staff that set up, that was part of our shared service center, were traditionally from the departments themselves. So we tupied them into SSCL. And what that meant is that there was always a very good working relationships. Now to the second part around the commercial aspect, it's made it easier in commercial discussions with certain departments, especially because there is that element of trust, and we do have, because ultimately we are owned still by the government, partly by the government. The Cabinet Office, who are that 25%, act as almost a referee when there's any commercial dispute. So it's very much a case of, well, if we don't agree, we pass it to them. So I would say no. There's always elements of it, but actually, trust and commercial factors it's been a relationship for the years.
Okay, thank you. Well, the results of the poll are, they won't give any debate because everyone agrees. So let's quickly forget this question.
I can comment on that a little bit. It's not only that we reduce administrative burdens and therefore save tax money, but I think another big advantage of interacting digitally with our citizens is that we give them a lot of control to the data that they're entering. So a lot of citizens look at the government as some blurry thing that you put information to and you just have to wait until you hear something back. When we start interacting more digitally with our with the public, they get the opportunity to follow their cases live, to ask questions, to see in what stage their request might be. So I think it will be a big improvement in the way that we'll build a lot of trust with our public when giving them more insight about how information is being processed that they enter. And I think that's maybe an even bigger advantage than all the savings and all the reducing of administrative burdens.
Okay. Well, I think that is a great segue into the discussion, the last 10 minutes of this webinar. And I would like to start the discussion with a question or maybe a remark by Titus, who says that it is striking to see that DICTU is 100% government owned, while the UK colleagues, SSCL, are 75% private and only 25% government owned. What are the pros and cons of these constructions? Graham, can I give you the first opportunity to reflect on that?
Absolutely. I mean, from my experience, I've worked in both shared service centres that are solely owned by the business itself. So I used to work for BT Shared Service Centre, so I've got experience in both. I think, well, the cons are the administrative side in terms of proving that you have met the service level agreements, the KPIs, the conversations around the change, because there is always contractual implications. I think there are at times it can slow it down, but we're finding personally, it's not us as in the shared service centre that slows that change and data quality down. It's usually the departments, because some of them are quite large departments. MOJ, I think the biggest pro is actually the outreach and ability to understand. We have a reach into our parent company, which is Sopra Steria, and they also have another government joint venture, which is NHS SBS, and that SBS platform is a different split. That's 50% NHS and 50% government. But what it actually does is that our Sopra Steria group does a lot of consultancy work in digital transformation for tech companies, for banks, for all these compared to our government anyway. I don't know what necessarily it's like in Holland, but much more advanced on the digital journey. What that does is it gives us the ability to actually learn from practice, but actually be the leader in to our departments. So we are presenting ideas, and is a great example of it, that the government departments we deal with don't or didn't even think about beforehand, because they just said, oh, let's buy into Oracle and spend billions of pounds or whatever it is with Oracle if we move on to their SaaS product. So I think it's very much that element that we are able to innovate or have a bigger reach or net cast within our IT or our tech companies and learn on that journey. So not just actually what they do, but how they do it, so we can learn from their mistakes. And it's striking some of the comments we've had coming out recently, but one of them is actually, can you slow down on your innovation journey because it's too fast for their departments?
We've had that one as well.
Maybe you can add a little bit as well, Eric, on the pros and cons of being 100% government owned.
Yeah, I can. Well, clearly one of the big advantages of being privately owned is that what we see is a much more result-driven culture in the company. I myself come from a private company as well before I started working with the government. But you do have some conflicting interests. In a public company, it's all about shareholders. It's about making profit. And as a government company, we have different goals, and it can give some conflicting interests. And what we think is that even in a company that's been 100% government owned, we can still try to be as effective, as result driven, and as as customer centered possible without having the pressure of shareholders and investors. So that's and I think it's a cultural thing as well. We in the Netherlands, we don't want a lot of interference of those conflict of interests. We try to keep them as separate as possible.
Thank you. And of course, we do have the advantage of avoiding public tenders if government agencies want to hire us for the case management system. That's another one.
Yeah. So just to pick up on that point is the way the UK government work is they do have frameworks that departments can sign up to. So because SSCL is the sort of tender for the framework, any of the government departments can engage with us without going to competitive tender. So similar to yourself, although you're fully government owned, it gives us the ability to that quick engagement and go live. So it's probably as much to do with, like I said, there is a culture, but how the contracts are set up as well. It gives us that ability, and we've demonstrated that multiple times. I know we've gone live with some smaller accounts over the past years as well, or the past year that I didn't mention.
Okay. Maybe I think the time is really flying. Maybe one last topic for discussion is, how do you both see the future of these shared service centers? What are future developments? What is coming next? What is Eric?
Well, frankly, I think we're only at the beginning of sharing IT services across the central government, and that also has to do with the shift from our customers and for ourselves by having the focus on the technical part to the focus on the business part. As I explained earlier in the presentation, when you focus on the business part, you see a lot of similarities in between parts of the government. And once we really get to work together as an IT department together with our customers in exploring how these similarities can go into similar functionality, I think we're only at the beginning of sharing a lot more within the government than we do now. We do have a lot of legacy. We do have a lot of separate parts that implement the same process on a different way. It has to do with engagement. It has to do with working together. And I think with all things like working agile and DevOps, I think we're only at the beginning of starting to share much more knowledge, but also much more systems that we are doing right now.
Thank you. Graham? Any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree in terms of elements and you know the sharing of information and especially being more customer user journey focused is our priority. I think the biggest difference that we have to see in the next 5 years, especially, so we obviously, well, as I've said, we run a back office finance and HR. I think given and going back to that poll that we've just all agreed 100% on, when we increase the ability for users to find the information themselves, and whether that's through integrations or one-stop click journeys, that back office function in terms of the cost will disappear. Well, not necessarily disappear. You will still need your experts, but a large function will reduce. So us within in the shared service space will focus more on what we would now call value add propositions, as opposed to the day-to-day making sure invoices be paid, because the user journey from initiating payment to all the way through to or raising the purchase requisition to all the way through to actual payment will be automated, and it will essentially be providing a platform instead of people. So we're going to be very much looking for other ways to continue to grow as a company, and similarly, what that will mean is less reliance on the monolithic ERPs like Oracle, and bringing in these edge technologies that do a better job. I've highlighted before, but actually making sure that instead of relying on one partner, we're relying on multiple partners that are all better at doing what they do. So very much choosing the product to meet the customer requirement, as opposed to retrofitting the ERP into the customer.
Okay. We are running out of time. I do have one question for both of you, just to wrap up this session. I mean, we have seen two very different types of shared service centers. SSCL focusing more on HR and finance. DICTU being completely government owned, focusing on the primary process of the government agencies. I would still like to hear from both of you. What is your biggest takeaway of the presentation of the other? So Eric, what is your biggest takeaway of what Graham told us, and vice versa?
Well, I think what Graham is doing in the UK is a different scale as we are doing right now. And well, it gives me the confidence that even when we grow, we get to harvest the same goals that we are doing right now. So it gives me some confidence that we're on the right path.
Great. And Graham?
I think from my perspective, it's very much there is a difference within DICTU, Rijk, as in the departments of what they who they provide for, and it's definitely giving me ideas of where we could potentially assist our government going forward. I think I've seen one of the comments about reusable components from Harry, and that is something that we would like to do. So creating a one-stop shop, not just for the customers, but potentially for the UK going forward.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Graham. Despite all the difficulties, I think it went really well. Thank you so much, Eric. Really great. And thank you everyone for watching. And if you want to see it again, there will be a video published on iBEstuur.nl. Thank you everyone, and have a great Wednesday.